So in the last video, we looked at St. Joseph as a model or an example for us about the practice of the renewal of right intention. As a just man, St. Joseph always had a right intention before God. He always did God's will throughout his entire life. That's why he serves as a model for us who seek to grow to that same holiness by always renewing our right intention, by those short prayers that give over all that we do, all of our lives to God, for his glory, in love for him, and from his will. In this video, we're going to talk more about the third and final disposition that Moreau recommends to us as part of the spirit of prayer, that of frequent longings from the heart. Like the renewal of right intention, the practice of frequent longings is a response to the practice of the presence of God. It's somewhat different, though, in that while the renewal of right intention concerns first and foremost our behavior, what we do throughout our lives, the frequent longings disposition is much more about the attitude with which we do them. Now, also, like the renewal of right intention and the practice of the presence of God, frequent longings, which can sound a little bit vague, I think is something very concrete, very real, and very easy to approach, although, once again, difficult to perfect. I think that, quite simply, the disposition of frequent longings from the heart is nothing other, for Moreau, than desiring God, wanting God throughout our entire life, letting that desire for God, letting the want of God to become the guiding desire, the guiding drive of who we are, all that we say, all that we think, all that we do. This desire for God is the foundation and essence of all prayer. Every authentic prayer comes from some sort of a desire for God and leads us into a greater union, oneness, closeness with God through that desire. Now, Moreau famously said that all prayer is simply desire for God. There are many different ways of getting there, whether it's the rosary or meditation or scriptural reflection, but once our prayer stirs up our desire and we begin to really want God in our hearts, then drop whatever we were doing and just rest and foster that desire for God. That's what will lead us to that union with God. Now, it's this desire for God which moves us to this closeness with God, which is our happiness, which is holiness, and the whole point of the entire Christian life. This is why the Psalms, which have been seen as the blueprint for all Christian prayer, have us praying in the words of desire and longing. For instance, the Psalms have us pray, "O God, you are my God, for you I long, for you my soul is thirsting, like a dry, weary land without water." Or, likewise, "Of you my heart has spoken, seek his face. It is your face that I seek, O Lord, hide not your face." Desire for God grows to become, through practice, the attitude of all of our prayer, all of our actions, and all of our life. But it's important to note something, and that's that desire, though it's often accompanied by feeling and emotion, is not necessarily emotional at all. Some of the greatest love, longing, and desire that the saints have experienced have been done in the times of the greatest suffering, the greatest dryness in prayer. Jesus knew the greatest longing for God in his own life when he screamed, "I thirst," from the cross. In trying to build up the attitude of longing for the heart, we are not necessarily seeking deeper emotions, but to have the desire for God, the choice for God, overcome and subsume all of our other smaller desires and smaller wants. But how do we do this? It's easy to say that we should desire God, but we're seldom in control of our desires. After all, isn't temptation just desiring something other than God against our will? We don't choose it, it just happens to us. It would be nice if we never sinned, if we were never tempted, and if we always desired God and to do his will in all things, but it's kind of out of our control. But there's great freedom in the fact that it is out of our control. The desire we are seeking to foster is a gift from God. It's not something we earn. It's something that God gives us, and God desperately wants to give us. The way that we foster it, though, is by accepting that gift. Whenever our hearts are moved to desire God, whether we're praying or at Mass or encounter a joy or a blessing or a love or even a trial, whenever our hearts are moved to desire God, fostering that desire, spurring it along, dwelling in it, don't let it fade away unnoticed, but help it to grow until it passes. And likewise, we can go to the Psalms, which are the model for all of our prayer. Those Psalms which give us the words to pray when we ourselves don't know how to. If we don't necessarily feel that desire for God, we can go to that Psalm and say, "O God, you are my God, for you I long." And in response, God will slowly over time build up that disposition in our hearts. And lastly, even in the most difficult moments, if we can't desire God, no matter how much we try, no matter how much we wish we could desire God, we just can't seem to want Him, we can pray that rock bottom prayer of, "God, I want to want you. I want to want you. I wish that I could. Give me that desire for you." And know that God is even more pleased with that prayer given in difficulty than a prayer given in a much more easy time. God will take care of the rest if only we give it to Him in prayer. Give our hearts to Him in prayer. Ask Him for that desire and open our hearts to it when that gift comes. So in this video, we talked about the last and final disposition that Moreau recommends as part of the spirit of prayer, that of frequent longings from the heart. The attitude that should characterize our entire life as Christians, that drives prayer, that forms the foundation of our entire spiritual life, that can move us to greater and greater acts of love for God and transform us into saints, into other Christs. In the next video, we are going to look at one last model for this disposition, the model of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which Moreau saw as a perfect example of this burning and consuming love that drives one to a total self-sacrifice for the other. Blessed Basil Moreau, pray for us.